even if by way of merger or demerger, the tax holiday is denied. Now that's one extreme view that one takes, but a plain reading of the circular, of the CBDT circular, seems to suggest that any kind of consolidation in a sector or in a company which is entitled to an 80IA deduction is clearly a question mark, and obviously one can take a position dependent on how you want to fight it out with the tax authorities, but this clearly is one red flag that keeps coming up in any kind of telecom consolidation that one looks at. I mean, that was one that became really a flavor. The other is whether merger of foreign company into Indian company is covered under the definition of amalgamation. Now if you go through the amalgamation definition, under the Companies Act, a body corporate can merge into an Indian company, and a body corporate includes a foreign company. And to answer that question, not only this has happened, it's pretty tested in that sense. We have had several schemes where foreign companies were merged into Indian companies. Mauritius, BVI, Delaware company. So this is kind of tested. The additional process that typically one requires is an RBI intimation, kind of an approval kind of a thing, depending on what is your granularity of your foreign company that you're merging into an Indian company. You are not trying to take a wire to take an ECB into an Indian company. So those are the typical things that RBI will look at a proposal like this. But clearly, if you're looking at streamlining your overseas structure, and this was one very popular tool that everybody used to park profits outside. If they made profits outside of their overseas acquisition, you kept it at a Mauritius level, and you simply merged the Mauritius, because if you brought it by way of dividend, you clearly had 33% tax in India. But if you merged the Mauritius company into the Indian company, the money virtually came tax-free. So this was one planning idea that everybody kept in mind whenever you set up an overseas structures. So instead of investing directly into a target, let's say in Germany, I would invest through India, Mauritius, and then Germany. Now whether Mauritius and Germany, it actually doesn't work very well. The Germans don't like Mauritius big time. But just what I'm trying to really drive home is that you always kept a buffer company in between your target and the Indian company, so as to have tax-free repatriation of profits by way of a merger, rather than bring everything back by way of dividend. So this was one thing that you always kept in mind. Of course, now with the growing RBI glare and the DTC provision, whether you can have multiple SPVs or not itself is a question mark. But devoid of the other consideration, this is one planning tool that people usually keep as a flexibility. Then you kind of take your call as to whether you really want to go down that line or not. The other is, does the merger give a fresh lease of life to the losses? And clearly the way the law is structured, it does give life. If you are under a BIFR scheme, and if the BIFR has given you a lease of life, then obviously there is no question mark if the BIFR gives you that the losses are available for perpetuity as a part of your scheme of rehabilitation with the BIFR, then clearly 72, the provisions for carry forward don't apply. The SICA provisions override the carry forward of losses. But if that's not the case, in any case in merger, there is a fresh lease of life to losses. Coming to demerger. Demerger is exactly the reverse of merger. Here you are not aggregating, though you can use demerger to aggregate, and I'll tell you how. Demerger is usually done when you want to unlock value, or when you think that the two things that you're carrying on together probably don't make too much of sense. One is the drag on the other, and overall your business is not making sense. You have one side in business and the other. So there is a logic to keep the two businesses together, because it acts as a natural hedge. But sometimes you have the objective of unlocking value for investors, and you want to really take your profit-making business in a big way. So you want to keep your loss-making business or not so profitable business out of it, because it would impact your EPS, it would impact your PE ratios, and therefore the valuation revaluation, as Naveen was explaining some time back. Many a times demerger is also a tool for achieving separation in families. In fact, mergers, demergers, anything can be used to kind of effectuate a family separation. Generally, demergers would be used when you want to unlock value. Classical case being Bajaj, Reliance, Syntex, and the likes of it. Again, demerger as a definition is fairly new. It's like close to now 14 years old, not as old as the merger definition. The definition came about in Finance Act 97, and thereafter it's been there. It's not that as if until the demerger definition came in, there were no demergers happening. In fact, demergers were always happening even before that. This was only that the legislation actually went around and set a procedure to demerger. Demerger essentially means that you divide the company, or you divide the entity into so many number of other entities that it makes unlocks value for you. Again, very similar provision, except that there are some more additional conditions in demerger. The law is that all the assets and all the liabilities of that particular undertaking, and I'll come to undertaking in a minute, needs to be transferred at book value. This book value seems to have just cropped in from somewhere, and they have said that, so for example, if I have revalued a brand in my books and I say brand at 100 crores and I create a revaluation reserve, the other company necessarily needs to record brands at zero and not really at this, because it actually says you need to ignore revaluations, and there are interpretation issues that one can get into, but suffice to say that there is this requirement of book value. You want me to end after? Oh, then I need to hurry up. Again, very, very similar provisions. If you comply with the law, it's tax-free for the shareholders, for the companies. Typically, there is a flow-through of cost and period of holding, except that the cost of shares in the shareholders gets split between the old shares and the new shares. So that's the only change between merger and a demerger. I just want to spend one minute on demergers. Merger is a very classical case, especially for loss-making companies, and I'll just take 5 minutes more, but I think it's critical to kind of get this point across. Merger is, carry forward of losses in merger is possible when you're looking at industrial undertaking. And industrial undertaking includes practically everything except for service sector. So whether it's airline, whether it is IT companies, not all kind of IT companies, for example, a BPO is not an IT enabled, it doesn't kind of get covered in 72A. Now there, a demerger becomes a very, very interesting proposition if you want to carry forward losses. Look at the classical Deccan and Kingfisher airline consolidation. If you look at the scheme, it was a scheme of demerger and not a scheme of amalgamation. Had they done a straight amalgamation of Deccan into Kingfisher or Kingfisher into Deccan, one of the companies would have lost the losses and the unabsorbed depreciation, and we are talking of thousands of crores in those companies. Airlines really at that point of time were also reeling into pressure. Now there they actually did a demerger. So the airline business of Deccan of Kingfisher was demerged and put into Kingfisher, was put into Deccan, which was the listed entity, and as a result of which most of the losses, almost like 99.9999% of the losses of Kingfisher was available to Deccan. Had they done a straight merger, one of the companies would have lost the losses. Very strangely, only Air India and Indian Airlines merger, there was a specific amendment that happened to law which permitted the carry forward of losses. Otherwise, even Indian Airlines and Air India merger would have lost the losses if the amendment had not really taken place.